In data handling, the only thing I'm talking about here is going to be compressing and decompressing. And that is something you may sometimes need to do because maybe you have a lot of files and they are taking up too much space, so you could compress them. Or maybe you are using too many files, because that is also possible. You have a certain file quota, just like you have a certain space you may. And you could then zip together the files. You can use zip, more commonly gzip is better at zipping them so they take up less space. It's also useful to zip files if you want to transfer them. And another useful thing to do is use the archiving program called tar. If you use that, then you take all the files and put them into one tarball, as they are called. And that is also useful when you are transferring it, because then you are transferring one file instead of transferring maybe 100,000 files. And that is much, much faster. And you can then gzip these files so that it takes up even less space. And you can just zip a file with gzip file. And to use tar, you can tar together a directory, and there are some options here. So C is just that you create it. V is not really necessary. It's verbose. It means it lists the output. I'm usually doing it to see how it looks. File is to specify what I want to call it. And when I'm extracting it, I'm using X instead of C, because I'm extracting instead of creating. If I then also want to compress it, I add a Z. And I can do that both when I'm creating and when I'm extracting it. And those are by far the most commonly used commands in it. And many programs you find online will be distributed as a tarball, often as a compressed tarball. And that is how you got the exercises for this course, for instance. There is some information about file transfer and syncing. I'm not going to talk about that. You can read it yourself, or you can follow the course that will be later in the spring on file transfers as well. NAISS is going to create a lot of small intro courses for various areas like file transfers and also some more intermediate bash and other things. So before I end this course, I'm going to mention some small hints and tricks. As you have seen before, there is the tab autocomplete, and you use that when you start typing on the keyboard, a command or a file, and it will autocomplete when you press tab if there is no matches other than that one, or otherwise it will suggest possible matches autocompleting the word for as much as it is unique. There's also the arrow up and down, which lets you scroll through previously used commands. And there are some shortcuts that you use on the command line. And you generally do it with, for instance, control. And again, remember when it says something like control minus something, that it means hold down control while you press this letter. So you can use control A to go to the beginning of the line, control E to the end of the line. You can clear the terminal with control I, and with control R, you get a prompt to write text to search in the list of recent commands. And all of these are very useful. Another thing that is useful is alias. And that is what I mentioned earlier, that when you have a command you use again and again, and it's just a short one. If it's a longer one, write a script. But if it's not really short, but long enough that it's annoying to write, but not long enough for a script, you can use the alias command. And just type alias and see if you have any aliases defined. And I can see there are some default aliases created for the users at NSC. But you can also create new aliases yourself. And you use that, for instance, maybe you prefer to write dir to get a list of files. I know there's someone on my corridor that does that. I've seen that. Or maybe you just want to say L. So then you could go in and say alias ls. Maybe that should always mean ls minus f or something. And you can create an alias directly on the line with alias my ls, for instance. And then you could say ls minus lart. And it prefers these then. And I should also add the like this. And now when I say alias, it should be listed here. It is, it's here. And I will now try run my ls, and then it runs ls minus lart instead of just ls. However, this alias I just created, it's only valid in the shell that you are in and only until you log out. Next time you would have to do it again. And in order to avoid that, you can instead add it to the bash rc file using, for instance, the nano editor. And it is inside this file here. It is in your home directory, so you could address it with a tilde and a slash, and then the bash rc. And you could also, of course, just do cd first, and then you will be in your home directory, and you could just say nano.bashrc. But let's open this file. It looks like this. And I don't have any user-defined aliases. So what I would do is I would go to the end of the file, and then I would say, it's always good to make a comment. So I would make a comment and say my aliases. And then under that, I would write alias and then maybe ll equals, let's do the ls minus lart. I then have created an alias. And I could do that because maybe I prefer my alias to be like this. My ls command to easily be accessible. And these are some that could be useful if I wanted to do that. So now I have created that. I will go and exit. I will save it. Yes, I want to call it this. And now if I logged out and logged in again, this command ll would be available. I could also do source and then the bash rc. Doing so executes this file .bashrc. So now it is available, and that means if I say ll, it runs this alias. And I could do alias and see, yes, there is now such an alias. And that is useful. Another thing is, remember this thing? some command like ls minus help gives you some help on this command, or man ls, man mkdir, man gcc, whatever, gives you the manual for this command, and there you can read more about the options and things like this. Some miscellaneous, write clear to clear the terminal, like I did, like that. You can write history to see your most recent saved commands, and you can change the number of saved commands by setting environment variable hist size. And you do that in your bash rc file again. And I think this is the end of what I'm going to talk about here. The summary is just going through what we have talked about.